Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Hero Examination, featuring Chihiro from Spirited Away. A normal, everyday girl thrust into a world beyond her control and dealing with forces she doesn't understand. But, by staying true to herself, she ends up coming out better, as well as making other people's life better too. So let's take a look at her character.
Also, if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. It will greatly help the channel.
We start the movie with Chihiro moving to a new place for the first time. She may be on the cusp of adolescence, ready to move on to the next step in her life. We see that she's a shy and nervous girl who probably is not used to having change in her life, and is afraid of the unknown. This is evident not only because she doesn't like the fact that they're moving away from her old home, but anytime she's met with anything abnormal or unexplainable, she becomes scared of it, hiding behind her parents and holding them closer whenever she's in situations like that, making the place she ends up in be her worst nightmare come to life. As not only is this place a bathhouse for spirits, but also her parents got turned into pigs, so she has no guardians protecting her from this predicament at all. However, thanks to a spirit named Haku, she's at least able to find a path on how to survive in the bathhouse, thanks to him giving her food to help her stay human as she was starting to become see-through, and giving her specific instructions on how to survive. She then shows off how persistent she is. For example, she helps the boiler man with one of the rocks and constantly tries to ask him for a job, despite him being pretty mean-spirited towards her. However, because of her insistence, he instructs her to go to the owner Yubaba, the witch, for a job instead. Chihiro then asks Yubaba for a job, and at first she says no, claiming that she's a useless crybaby with no manners. And while this might be an exaggeration, it does touch on a key point about her character. We do see her complain in the car about moving, and she's probably used to relying on other people for support. So she's a bit inexperienced in looking after herself, as well as certain customs you're supposed to follow. However, Yubaba does eventually give her one, but it's at a cost. She loses her name and is now called Sen. This is also the first sign of how brave she is too. Despite her being scared and nervous throughout the first half of the movie, she's willing to face her fears in order to save her parents. And keep in mind, even some spirits are afraid to face Yubaba, yet Chihiro kept asking for a job and ignoring her threats and scares. Later on, Haku takes Chihiro to see her parents, but when she gets to the place her parents are at, she asks which one is her parents, indicating at this point she couldn't tell, which could be interpreted as her beginning to lose what's close to her by being in the bathhouse. We then find out that Chihiro almost forgot her name, but remembers thanks to Haku's guidance and remembering her goodbye card. Now this is an interesting detail because at first she complained about losing the more superficial stuff, like her old house and life, but now her parents, her name, and identity is in jeopardy, and she must work hard to preserve it. Another bit of irony is the way she remembers her name is from a goodbye card, which could add more to the idea of how much her name and identity is tied to her old home, which she has to say goodbye to. Speaking of which, let's talk about her relationship with Haku. It's a dynamic where they both help each other. Haku is Yubaba's henchman, and from what we see in the movie, he isn't exactly well liked by the other spirits, and he seems to have forgotten his identity. That is, until he meets Chihiro and he helps guide her through the bathhouse. At first, it doesn't make any sense that Haku, being Yubaba's henchman, would ever help a human when even the spirits don't like him. The reason why he helps her is something we'll get into later. While at the bathhouse, we see just how hard and off this business actually is. But Chihiro is a hard worker and is always doing her job. We see the other workers in the bathhouse complain, but when she starts to work, she does not complain. With the fear of her losing what she holds dear, she has to try extra hard not to complain, which, as we've seen in the first half of the movie, she's not exactly the best at doing that. However, she is still clumsy and inexperienced. She isn't used to doing work or chores, which could indicate that Chihiro wasn't used to taking a lot of initiative in her life and pulling her own weight, which also might have led her into being nervous and afraid of anything, as she probably is used to just being comfortable. But again, she persists because she loves her parents and would do anything to save them. Not to mention, due to how new she is at the job and trying to fit in with the job, the bathhouse and work itself hasn't exhausted her or broken her spirit, so she is seen acting kind and showing manners to the other spirits.
Chihiro also seems to be more accepting, trusting, and helping. Despite the other spirits' mistrust towards people like Haku, Chihiro is always thankful to him, despite not knowing his intentions. Another example is when the stink spirit comes to the bathhouse. Spirits want to take the lazy way out by just giving him a quick bath, and are reluctant to give him their best water, but Chihiro does give him the best water, and as a result, she managed to find a thorn in him and get it out. He turns out to be not a stink spirit, but a rich and powerful spirit, who also has healing food that will come in handy later on. Chihiro's motives for working seem more out of a desire to help her parents and do good rather than money.
Later on, No Face shows up in the night and starts giving away money for food. He is a spirit that Chihiro accidentally let in, thinking he was a customer. Loving this kind gesture, he actually helps Chihiro clean the spirit by stealing bath tokens of their best water. No Face is an entity that possibly believes that kindness and friendship is given when he pays someone. Chihiro is offered to get some gold, but she doesn't care about that, as she seems to be more worried about Haku, the person who helped her. However, she does eventually run into No Face again. Chihiro thanks him for the bath tokens, but when he tries to give Chihiro gold, she rejects it. Thinking that this is a rejection of her acceptance, he freaks out. Chihiro eventually finds Haku bleeding out with Yubaba in the room with him. While she's spying on her, Yubaba manages to hear her. While hiding from her, Chihiro meets Yubaba's son, Bo, who is a big baby who tries to make Chihiro play with him. She managed to get out of his grip, but the baby follows her anyway, desperately wanting someone to play with after basically being stuck in the comforters all his life. However, Yubaba's twin sister, Zinaba, shows up and turns Bo into a mouse. He then follows Chihiro while as the mouse, and she looks after him while in disguise. She ends up back in the boiler room, and Chihiro makes Haku eat a part of the food that the river spirit gave her, and this causes him to spit out a seal and the slug that controlled him. The seal belonged to Zinaba, which she was trying to get from Haku before Haku destroyed her by snapping a paper. Chihiro manages to step on the slug, though. Chihiro then chooses to save Haku by giving the seal back to Zinaba, despite the dangers in going. However, like her working in the bathhouse and facing Yubaba to save her parents, she's willing to do anything for someone she cares about. And keep in mind, this is her putting her parents on hold and getting mixed up with a witch who was told was dangerous, and she's doing it all without any help, not even from Haku. However, she runs into No Face again, and we find out that he doesn't have anyone who cares for him. When Chihiro asks him about friends or family, she then gives him part of the food that the river spirit gave her, and this causes him to freak out. He then chases Chihiro outside the bathhouse, and this manages to calm him down, and Chihiro still invites him to join her, thinking the bathhouse made him crazy. This actually got her a lot of respect in the bathhouse too. And so, she gets on the train without the distraction of the bathhouse or hearing her fake name. She looks ahead, ready to face the unknown with no fear. But she also sees how empty it is, meaning her journey of self-discovery. She realizes just how alone she actually is, but still continues to face forward. The little girl stuck at the train, seemingly waiting for someone, could symbolize what Chihiro could have been, a ghost still waiting for her parents. Then in a later scene, Haku wakes up and goes to tell Yubaba that her son has been replaced. Haku then makes a deal to return the baby in exchange for Chihiro's contract to be torn up and her parents to be let go. When she makes it to Zeniba's house, she realizes that the spell on the seal was broken because of Chihiro's love for him. We also find out that the slug that Chihiro stepped on when she made him eat the food was the slug Yubaba used to control him, meaning that because she helped someone she cares for, Chihiro essentially helped Haku break from Yubaba's control and curse, allowing him to make a deal with Yubaba to let Chihiro go. At this point, she is trying to remember something about her parents, and Zeniba tells her that she never truly forgets if she really cares. Then, while riding on Haku's back, she finally remembers why she found Haku familiar and why she trusted him before. It turns out that he's the spirit of a river called the Kawaku River. Apparently he lost his way and identity when the river was filled and replaced with apartments. However, before that happened, Chihiro was playing in the river and lost her shoe. When she tried to get it back, she fell in. But the river pulled her back to the shore, and since then, Chihiro remembers the river, which reveals another detail about her character. One of the reasons why she was afraid of the unknown and change is she would forget what she held dear, like what Haku did when the buildings were built over his river. But after connecting with Haku, someone from her past, she made him remember who he was, and in turn made her realize that even if things might change, she won't forget what she holds dear. We also see how bringing No Face, the baby, and the owl on the train with her helped them in the long run, as we see that for the first time, Bo and Owl experience life and freedom outside the bathhouse to a point where they don't even want to change back. No Face found his gift of sewing thanks to Chihiro letting him come with her. It was Aniba inviting him to stay with her, and he seems happier for it. Then on her final test, Chihiro has to tell what pigs are her parents, which is ironic considering Yubaba failed this test, when she couldn't tell her son was the mouse. However, she managed to realize that none of the pigs were her parents, and so she's free to go. She says goodbye to Haku and meets her parents again, and on the way to her new house, she says she could handle it, indicating that she's ready to face her new life. And that was Chihiro, a young girl who held on to a lot of what she holds dear, so much so that anything new that came her way made her fear she might lose it. But thanks to the help of others and her desire to help people she cares about, she ends up facing her fears and realizing she won't lose what she holds dear. And in turn, she's able to help the people close to her, as well as help lost souls like No Face and Haku, and even a bit of the rest of the spirits at the bathhouse, which makes her a hero. Thanks for watching.